Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Pocket here on the Red Raider Gator channel. So we're here finally. They released info about the new mini set and woo! I am excited, but we do need to talk about the new cards. At least the ones that we've seen so far. It's basically these 6. There's a couple of other ones. I know there's like a Magmar in there. Actually, I think there might be I think there's close to like 20 that were seen in the trailer. These are like the only 6 that really matter, and really I'm not even worried about the Snivy and Morlul. I think this page just hasn't been updated. And then there's also the Aerodactyl EX, which I will throw a picture of up on the screen and just leave it there throughout the video so that you guys can hopefully see it. So we're just going to talk about each of these cards. Firstly, let's talk, we're going to save the best ones for last. But firstly, let's quickly talk about Blue. It just does minus 10 damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. This is going to be one of those cards that if you run it and you get it in your turn 1 hand, it's great. But if you get this on turn 8, 9, 10, it's probably not going to matter. There are maybe some instances where it gives you, it gets that break point. But I really think with potions and stuff being items, I would rather just have a potion than play Blue. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of instances late game where minus 10 damage is super helpful. But if you get this early game and you just want to prevent damage, it could be helpful. Dedenne, the Thunder Shock is going to basically be the new Pincurchin in this deck. It does 10 damage, but it's really, flip a coin to paralyze your opponents. It is just a better Pincurchin. It's slightly less HP. But you're attaching 1 energy and you're just hoping that you paralyze the opponents. I think it's a great card. I actually love this. Hopefully there's a regular, non-full art Dedenne as well so that everyone can run it. But I do love the artwork. It is so pretty. Oh, there's also, I'll throw up a picture right now while I'm talking about it. Marshadow, can't remember. It's a fighting type Pokemon, and if you have a Pokemon that gets knocked out, for 2 energy, 1 fighting and 1 colorless energy, you do 40 damage plus I think 60. So it's clearly meant to counter a Mewtwo or a Pikachu EX. You can one-shot a Pikachu EX if they knock out something on your side of the field for just 2 energy. So expect to see that thrown in. A lot of Marowak decks, a lot of the Primeape decks as well. Outside of fighting decks, it might still be useful. We're starting to see multicolor be slightly more useful, and the fact that it is just 1 fighting energy and 1 colorless is super nice. So that card will be very, very interesting. This Vaporeon, and I'm going to say it right now, right off the bat. I think this Vaporeon is the best card that we've seen in the set. Again, there's still other cards that haven't been released yet. Maybe 1 or 2 more EX cards that haven't been released yet. A couple cards with abilities maybe. But this washout ability, as often as you'd like during your turn, you may move a water energy from one of your benched Pokemon to your active Pokemon. This is absolutely insane. Especially with Misty, right? You use Misty to power up Pokemon, so you can use Misty to power up your active Pokemon, start doing damage with it, and then when that Pokemon is about to get knocked out, move that Pokemon back to the bench, put another Pokemon up front, and move energy to it. This is Lieutenant Surge, but you can just do it all the time, right? Like, imagine Starmie EX, you have the 2 energy on it, bang, so you start powering up Articuno, right, because why wouldn't you? Then, when your Starmie's about to die, for free, you retreat that Starmie back onto the bench, put your other Starmie EX out front, you haven't even started powering up that Starmie, but you have Vaporeon on the bench, so you can just immediately power up that Vaporeon. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not going to overreact. I hope they play tested this and it's just maybe an overreaction, but these cards, like Lieutenant Surge, allows you to immediately put all energy on a Pokemon And granted, that Pokemon does 140 damage for that one move. But not only that, Lieutenant Surge is a supporter, so you can only do it once per turn, twice per game. And on that particular Pokemon that most people are using Surge for, the energy, all of 3 of the energy on that card get discarded. This is just, hey, move your energy wherever you want. It doesn't matter. You can power up your really powerful Pokemon and then just bounce around. Like, that's insane to me. I think this card, I won't call it game breaking. I think it takes a lot for something to break a game, like, entirely. But I think this, especially because the water type already has what many people think is the most powerful card in the game. Like, a lot of people run Articuno decks because it's just Articuno Misty, right? If you've been lucky enough to open up Starmie EXs, you're probably throwing Starmie EX in there, right? And it like, honestly, outside of the top 3 meta decks, it is one of the best decks, in the game. Misty, of course, does fail 50% of the time, but imagine, it doesn't matter. You have Misty, so I can, let's say I don't draw a good hand, but I have this Vaporeon. Maybe it's even in the active spot. So I power it up with Misty just to start doing 60 damage, right? Because I know I have this ability. Then I get Magikarp Gyarados out, and I retreat this with maybe 2x speeds, and then boom. Actually, I take that back. There's also a leaf card that makes it's a supporter card. I'll throw it up on screen again. Sorry, I'm thinking about all the other ones I saw online as well. I don't know why this website doesn't have all of them. But the leaf card is a supporter card, and it makes retreat cost 2 energy less. So you could play a leaf, retreat this for free, put your Gyarados in the active spot, and then move all of the energy from this Pokemon to Gyarados, and then give it that last energy. And again, Gyarados isn't even that great of a card, but you could put, it's just crazy. It makes the bricking of your hand not matter, because so much of this game, you're getting 1 energy per turn, and you really want to not fall behind energy from your opponent. And this basically makes it to where you can't brick, because even if you get that Pokemon last second, you can just move the energy to it and attack, right? You can hold it in your hand, the opponent doesn't even know you have it, and then play it, put it in the active spot, boom. It's a crazy card, right? I don't know how I feel about this one, but I'm intrigued. I'm going to use it if I get it, of course. I'm going to show it off, but I'm very, very intrigued about it. And then this Mew EX. This Mew EX is awesome. It's not a gripe that I have with it, but I need to point out like one thing with this card just so people don't get too excited, because I know I thought the same thing. This Mew EX is basically a better Ditto. Not only if you run it in a Psychic deck with Psychic Energy, you're doing 20 damage, the first time you can attack energy. Most EX Pokemon have those like 2 attacks. Very nice. However, it is the genome hacking that has people excited, and it is for good reason. It is an infinitely better Ditto. However, I have to point out, if let's say you're playing, because I saw this and I was like, oh my god, it's a perfect counter for Charizard. It's only a perfect counter for Charizard if you have Fire Energy. And I want to point out the top 3 meta decks and why this Mew EX doesn't really like work with them. You can't counter Pikachu with it because Pikachu's attack, so when you copy their attack, you also have to copy like what their attack says, like the ability or like what it just says to do. Pikachu's attack requires you to have a bench full of lightning Pokemon. So if you were using Mew EX, you would be running it in a lightning deck, maybe as an extra Pikachu, but at that point, you're using an extra energy to do the same 90 damage Circle Circuit, and that's only if you're going up against a Pikachu, obviously, because you're copying something from not only your opponent, but your opponent's active. So it's not even like Ditto where you can steal something off the bench. You have to take it from their active Pokemon. So you're assuming a Pikachu EX is in the active spot, but then again, it's probably still just a waste of a move. For Charizard and Mewtwo, their attacks require you to discard 2 energy when you use them, or 2 of the specific type of energy. It's not just that you discard 2 energy, it's that you are discarding a specific type of energy. So you have Mewtwo with Psychic. So unless you're running Psychic in this deck and you have 2 Psychic Energy that you can discard from this Pokemon, after you use that attack, you can't do this attack, right? Unless you have 2 Fire Energy to discard after using Crimson Storm, then you can't use that attack. So just keep that in mind. It's still an infinitely better Ditto, and I think people are gonna find uses for it. You could throw this in a Blaine Fire deck, and you're honestly probably cooking, right? Because then you get Crimson Storm after just 3 energy, right? You don't get the same sort of engine ramping as you get with Charizard, but it could be a great backup if you run into a Charizard with a Blaine deck. But other than that, I mean, it's still a great card. It's going to be so much better than Ditto. And then we have Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is a very interesting card, so let me pull it up real quick. Okay, so Aerodactyl EX. The 2 energy for 80 isn't terrible. Of course, it being a stage 1, you have to get to your Aerodactyl, and it's what it evolves from isn't a basic, so you're not guaranteed to get it. But 2 energy for 80 isn't terrible. It's usable. And then the ability is also very interesting. So I'm assuming this, like any other ability, can be used whether or not Aerodactyl's on the bench. It doesn't say Aerodactyl has to be in the active spot. However, your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. That's awesome, just because it's kind of like, think about it as like a weird Sabrina, where like if you have Aerodactyl on your bench, and then they put, let's say they start with Ekans in their active spot, well, they can't evolve it into Arbok until they retreat it onto their bench. So at some point, they're going to have to retreat it onto their bench. And so it's just interesting to see what people are going to be able to play around with. It's an EX Pokemon, but it's interesting to start seeing these EX Pokemon have abilities that you can use on the bench. Vaporeon, obviously, of course. It's not even an EX Pokemon, but just sitting these high-level Pokemon on the bench, or high HP Pokemon on the bench, so they can't get killed too quickly by, Greninjas and things like that, but they are worth 2 points if they, you KO them. So it's very interesting. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. That is such an interesting card. I mean, an easy way around it is just, run 2 copies of everything in your deck and evolve the one on the bench. But sometimes you only draw one of those and it gets difficult. So very, very interested. But I think overall, I don't think this is really going to change the meta. But I think this Mew EX is a card that could be thrown in decks, depending on what energy they're running. Or just thrown in decks if you're just, want to go out there. You can do like Venusaur's attack, an energy less than Venusaur, so it could be a good counter there. I could see some things coming into play with Mew EX where it's a good counter, and if you draw it on turn 1 or turn 2, you might change your win condition to, hey, I got to power up this Mew. So it does take 3 energy, but if you know what your opponent's playing pretty early on and you have this card, it's going to be interesting. Vaporeon, of course, I think this is the best card that we've at least seen so far, that we've seen from the mini set. I don't think they released all of them, and hopefully they didn't release all of the good cards, but I think this Vaporeon, it's scary, man. That Wipeout, or what is it, Washout, that's very, very scary. But other than that, I just wanted to come to say hi, talk about the new mini set. I know I didn't want to release like a news video early in the morning because I know everyone does that, and it's just like they all say the same thing, the same cards. So I wanted to give my thoughts on each card. I think the new set's going to be very, very interesting. We're already seeing some new things come into play, between new EX Pokemon, new supporters, new abilities. So I'm very, very excited about where this game is going. But other than that, I will catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.